So my build here has only become stronger and stronger now, being able to cover even more combat scenarios at the same time. As you probably remember, it could already one-shot bosses easily and was insanely destructive, clearing entire areas in just mere seconds, while also being practically immortal, as you saw in this video. Now I swapped some things around and made it the best dual-wielding 2 one-handed swords build, the best two-handed build, and the best bow build all at the same time. And very importantly here is that we can very quickly and smoothly swap between each component here due to using some in-game mechanics that I will go over in a second. So every slot here in your interface will have the absolute best equipment and abyss gears after watching this video. First of all, we need to talk about this slot. Probably 99% of who's playing this game never even saw this or considered it, but yes, you can put something very nice here. The Cuckoo's Watcher spec is what I went for, which you can find the recipe for right above the A, above the hairnet tag on the map, in the Sanction of Atonement. Once you deploy this amazing thing, you get your 2 personal buddies that can't be targeted and will be next to you for your entire destructive run. We don't use these guys for damage though, but they are stagger machines, giving you a bunch of CC essentially, as they shoot pretty fast too, controlling whatever is trying to get at you. Very useful in many situations, giving you a lot of extra pressure on your enemies in combat that you then can pair with your regular nukes and burst. And if you want to embarrass your enemies when killing them, well, these two do an excellent job at that as well. Regarding the main setup then, our two-handed sword build and how it leads to the one-shots and everything that you saw earlier, well, a lot of that stays the same as in my original video, so watch that video. It is mandatory because this video can be seen as a part 2 to that video, but the main changes now is that our attack speed and movement speed are going to reach very high numbers now, with crit also being maxed or near max depending on the weapon, while also all of my weapons here pass that 53 attack threshold. All of these things at the same time, and for those that don't know, at 53 attack it has been found that crit starts to have better returns for your damage output than just stacking attack, and before 53 attack it's just better to purely stack attack to get there. So we max crit now while also being above that 53 attack threshold, basically the ideal scenario. In terms of armor then, I've now succumbed to actually using the Cuckoo flame resistant armor as well. In part 1 I basically said it doesn't look that great and you can't dye it and you lose 3 armor slots, but the thing is, when we are using 4 different weapons like I'm doing here, the 3 universal crit applying to all of those at the same time is just too good to pass up on. And the 10 flame resistance is nice for the relevant areas, as well as the heat absorption special ability. And I kinda made it work aesthetically as well, I think. So yes, we just picked the chest armor for those functional benefits. For our boots and gloves then, we now use the tariff cloth options. These have the juicy innate stats of extra movement speed and attack speed. And I now swapped the abyss gears on my gloves with attack speed, giving us 6 attack speed and the relentless abyss gear as well. The attack speed here is universal, so it applies to all weapons, which is very nice, and in part 1 I focus mostly on defense here on these gloves, but I think these 2 abyss gears are going to be really good here and also noticeable, especially because relentless is also very easily procced. Then for our shield, I now use a shield with 2 movement speed innately, and then the defense abyss gears will still pump up our defense. I went over why the movement speed is very important in part 1, and some shields have this property innately, so we grab a shield with that property. For our Vow of the Dead King then, the 2 crit abyss gears become redundant due to our chest, so we swap one of those out for destruction, or rather attack. Then another big change is this ring. In part 1 I used that 1 crit ring, which after some more internal evaluation is just not enough value, so we swap it out for these 7 attack nuclear types of rings, which make it actually quite easy to reach that 53 attack threshold, as this is a lot of attack for this slot. So get one for sure, and what you also need to do for sure and will give you a lot of value is subscribing to my channel right now. And also give the video a like, you know you want to do it, so don't forget to do that. And then the rest of the armor and accessories just stay the same, and we are achieving peak because now we also have those 2 other setups ingrained in our build. So first of all, we incorporated the infinite explosive arrow build with this build, which is easily the strongest bow build, and it synergizes extremely well with my build actually, because our fire imbuement abyss gears on our boots that I used in my 2-handed build, which syncs very nicely with our turning slash there, procs in fact with your bows, charged shots very nicely as 2, and you get the same effect now but from a distance, and it's a lot of damage too. So these 2 builds work very well in conjunction to create the ultimate build. Incorporating the bow in this build is very useful as it destroys anything annoying in the air or in the distance that you can't reach otherwise with your melee damage. And the infinite explosive arrow build is insanely lethal, and the damage output is very competitive here to our 2-handed sword setup, so it's a great fit. The damage versus bosses gets out of hand quickly as you can just spam your shots over and over without ever losing any arrow, and then your charged shots take a huge chunk of HP too, so those are great as an opener or as a finish pressure when the fight is still loading up and your target is stationary. Regarding the abyss gears on your bow then, first of all, of course, 2 times no consumption of arrows, abyss gear till you get to 100% essentially. This will lead into you having infinite arrow spam, and then your other 3 abyss gears are just going to be crit here because we already reached that 53 attack threshold here with our bow. And then in your arrow slot you just put a single explosive arrow. That's all you need. Now to actually reach that 53 attack threshold quite easily, make sure to grab any of the 33 attack bows in the game, as the ones that sacrifice like 3 attack for 2 crit or attack speed are just bad value. So I personally just grabbed the ancestral golden knotted bow for this purpose, and as you can see you have a lot of options here for your bow option. So again, like always, just pick the one that you like the looks of the most. For the bow build you basically just need all the bow related skills, with especially the charged shot and evasive shot being the most important. Evasive shot is especially important here to max out because you can start to shoot very fast in quick succession and shoot multiple arrows at the same time too, so it is mandatory for this build. Grab these skills. So that's it then for our bow. Now the third component to our build here is then going to be the dual wielding setup, where we use 2 one-handed swords. As you remember in part 1, we grabbed an ability called quick swap, which means we will be able to very quickly swap between our one-handed swords and our two-handed swords mid-combat basically. It is very convenient. So you can make huge chains of where you attack with your two-handed sword and then swap over to your dual wielding setup when necessary. And this is great because our two-handed setup is spirit intensive in the way that I built it and makes great use of turning slash, while our one-handed setup is on the other hand stamina intensive, and as you kill enemies you will get spirit back, so it is nice to swap between the two. Gameplay wise it's also just a good variation. The two-handed setup is like a nuclear setup, dealing a lot of burst, while the dual wielding setup attacks a lot more in quick succession, meaning it's nice versus enemies or bosses that have invulnerability between their states, where you just only get small windows to attack, or where they can just completely block a big hit, you know. So there are some different scenarios where those will prevail. However, I do think that the two-handed setup has ultimately the most damage potential, mostly because your attacks are getting amplified by 5 abyss gears every time, as well as the higher innate damage of a two-handed sword. For our 2 one-handed swords here then, again they reach that 53 attack threshold, so we put crit on them and then use 2 forward/abyss gears on both, namely Crown's Pursuit, which is excellent for one-handed swords and probably one of the best abyss gears for that job, and then also Shadow Claw, again a great abyss gear. I've also put a spinning/abyss gear here, Hound's Claw, just for the variation, as it gives you this spinning move with quite some reach, and it's also great to break guards for bosses or enemies with shields, giving you a great way to open the fight. But if you don't want that, then you can just replace this one with attack or crit if you just want more raw stats over utility. A good alternative shout here for a more defensive approach is then the Spirit Judgment abyss gear for your evasive shot that you can stick on either one-handed sword, as you will get a move that you can kite with, evading incoming damage while spawning this huge minion essentially that packs a punch too and downs whatever you're fighting, giving you momentum. It's still high pressure in a different way. Regarding which 2 one-handed swords you pick, it doesn't matter, you just need to pick the ones that have the highest attack damage, so the 34 attack damage options, and there are a lot of those. Again, just pick whatever you like the looks of the most here. I picked the Faded Shadow, and then the other one is the Sword of the Wolf actually, which is like your starter weapon, but it reaches the same damage output, and that also already tells you that a lot of these weapons are actually just the same. So again, go for aesthetics within the 34 attack options here. When you are slashing away with your dual wielding here, you can definitely incorporate those turning slashes because we are wielding gear that are enhancing our turning slash, if you remember from our two-handed setup. So it works here very nicely too, and you are benefiting from that at the same time as well. For skills, we grab the same exact skills as with our two-handed setup, which is another reason why it synergizes very nicely with that build and why I incorporated it in this overall 3-in-1 type of build. Then there's one final category that we need to talk about to actually make the absolute most best build of all time: the utility tools. First of all, the dagger. The best dagger here is going to be the King's Goblin's Treasure Dagger, giving you that additional skinning chance once you use it. You can get it right here in the Purin area. For the best logging axe, it's going to be the Olvault one, which you can get in the Long Branch Shade Hideout right here. This one gives you a 30% extra chance to get more timber when you're cutting them trees down, so definitely worth it for our wood chopping enthusiasts. Then the best pickaxe is going to be the Baroner's Pickaxe, giving you a nice bunch of extra chance to mine additional ore. You can get this by becoming friends with the trader in the fort right beneath the in the Tashkalp tag on the map. The pickaxe is very similar to the axe, but does the same thing with mining minerals. Finally, the best fishing rod is then going to be the claw for automatically reeling in fish for you if you want, making life very easy for you. You can steal this from an NPC south of Hernand at the fishing hub right here. And that's every single slot with the best gear covered then. Nothing left, this is peak performance. If you still have any questions about certain slots or fundamental things or certain pieces that I didn't went over in this video, it's because I did that in part 1. Like I said, you have to watch that video as well to get the full overview. Link for that will be in the description. And thank you for watching. Subscribe, leave a like, and enjoy destroying everything.